You fear growing old. The wrinkles, the weakening body, the slow disappearance from the world. Society tells you old age is nothing but decline, a waiting room for death. But Carl Jung disagreed. He believed the second half of life was not an ending, but a beginning. A chance to shed illusions, to unite the fragments of your soul, to finally live as yourself. For Jung, aging was not a curse. It was a blessing. But here's the question. What secret did Jung see in aging that the rest of us are too afraid to face? Keep watching, and we will uncover why Jung saw old age not as decay, but as life's final gift. And here, we present these ideas through art and color, so you can see how age is not decay, but the unveiling of its hidden blessing. We grow up surrounded by a single story about aging, that it is decline, a slow fading. We're told that strength weakens, relevance diminishes, and the world begins to look past you. But Carl Jung saw old age not as a collapse, but as a liberation. He argued that the exhausting demands of youth, building a career, securing approval, performing all those roles, belong to the first half of life. In the second half, he said, those masks are meant to fall, and with them falls the illusion that you must always be more than you already are. Think about it. Can you feel that shift happening in your own life? The decreasing patience for pretense? The quiet satisfaction of saying no to things that no longer serve you? The feeling that your worth is no longer tied to your job title or your productivity? This isn't decline, this is clarity. Aging for Jung was not about loss. It was about uncovering what had been hidden all along. He lived this conviction in his own later years. At Bollingen Tower, his retreat on the shores of Lake Zurich, Jung withdrew from the noise of the world. To outsiders, it may have looked like retreat, a man stepping back because his best years were behind him. But within those stone walls, Jung was at work on the deepest questions of existence. He painted, carved, recorded visions, and wrote about the unconscious with a clarity that only age allowed. What society dismissed as decline became for him the richest stage of creation. So the question for you is this: what if the very years you've been taught to fear, the years when ambition softens and the world stops demanding your performance, are the years that can set you free? What if aging doesn't erase your meaning, but finally reveals it? Beneath the masks, beneath the roles, beneath the expectations, there is you. Now I want you to tell me in the comments, do you see old age as decline, or do you feel that stirring of freedom? In youth, time feels endless. We waste days as if they are infinite, promising ourselves that tomorrow will always be waiting. Ambition drives us forward, but with ambition comes illusion, the illusion that life is without limits. Carl Jung believed that the second half of life shatters this illusion. Aging brings the horizon of death closer, and with it, the awareness that time is not an ocean, but a river with an ending. For many, this realization is terrifying. But for Jung, it was an invitation. He saw death not as despair, but as the sharpest teacher of meaning. When the future shortens, the present deepens. When illusions fall, the truth of what matters stands bare. Jung once wrote, "Wholly unprepared, we embark upon the second half of life, and we take the step into the afternoon of life, worse prepared than we took our first steps into the morning." These words hold a paradox. Old age confronts us with the limits we ignored, yet in doing so, it offers clarity youth can never know. Boundaries, rather than shrinking life, can focus it. Mortality reminds us that every moment wasted is gone forever, and every moment embraced becomes infinitely more valuable. Think about it carefully. If you knew the years ahead were fewer than you imagined, what would you stop chasing? Would you cling to endless striving, or would you let go of what no longer matters? Would you still scatter yourself across trivial pursuits, or would you sharpen your days on the things that endure? The wisdom of limits is not cruelty, it is mercy. It pulls away distractions and illusions until only the essential remains. For Jung, this confrontation with mortality was not the end of meaning, but its beginning. What have you stopped chasing as you've grown older? Tell me in the comments. Welcome to Sophion, a sacred space for wisdom and art. If this resonates, consider subscribing. You are among the first and will always be remembered. Thank you for standing with us. The first half of life is outward. We build careers, raise families, chase recognition. We measure ourselves by what we achieve, by how the world responds to us. But Carl Jung believed that the second half of life requires a different task. The focus shifts inward. The outer world may still demand attention, but the inner world begins to speak louder. Dreams, memories, regrets, and forgotten desires rise to the surface. What once could be ignored now demands to be faced. Jung called this process individuation, the slow integration of all the parts of the self. Youth begins it, but old age makes it urgent. The shadow, the wounds, the contradictions you spent decades avoiding cannot be denied forever. Jung wrote, "The afternoon of life is just as full of meaning as the morning, only its meaning and purpose are different." For him, the purpose of later life was not achievement, but wholeness. This turning inward is not weakness, it is completion. To gather what was lost, to bring the shadow into the light, to accept both failure and success as part of one story. This is the blessing hidden in aging. The second half of life allows us to become what we always were, beneath the performance. It offers the possibility of reconciliation with the self. So, aging, for Jung, wasn't retreat but deepening, a chance to see the fragments of life not as errors, but as parts of a larger whole. Share in the comments. What's one lesson or memory from your life that still shapes you today? For Carl Jung, the later years of life were not only psychological, but spiritual. He believed that when the demands of ambition fade and the illusions of youth collapse, a new dimension opens. Aging, if approached consciously, is not just a step toward death, but a passage toward wisdom, transcendence, and freedom. In youth, the ego drives us outward. We compete, compare, and try to secure our place in the world. But in old age, the ego loosens its grip. The stage of striving gives way to something quieter, but more profound. Jung described this shift as the soul's return to essence. Freed from the endless need to prove, the individual can turn toward meaning that outlasts time. This is why he saw old age as a spiritual blessing. It allows us to ask not what we can achieve, but who we are when nothing more needs to be achieved. Jung often reflected that a human life is not fulfilled by extension, but by depth. Old age compresses time, but it deepens experience. It brings us face to face with death, but instead of despair, it can offer reconciliation. For Jung, death was not the destruction of meaning, but its final frame, the boundary that gives life its shape. So, the later years of life are not a time of loss or retreat. They are a deepening, a stage where the masks of youth fall away and the self emerges unburdened and whole. Freed from the need to prove worth or chase approval, old age can reveal its true gift, clarity, essence, and the quiet joy of living authentically. For Jung, this is the blessing hidden in every advancing year. Now I want you to leave these words in the comment section. Yes, I see old age as a blessing, not a curse. Yes, I embrace the wisdom these years bring. Carl Jung refused to see old age as mere decline. He believed it was the stage where life reveals its deeper meaning. In youth, we build. In midlife, we struggle. But in the later years, if we face them consciously, we are offered something different. Liberation from masks, clarity through limits, the inward turn toward wholeness, and finally, the spiritual blessing of living truthfully, without illusions. Jung's message remains radical. Old age is not the loss of meaning, but its unveiling. It is not weakness, but completion. The body may fade, the world may stop demanding your performance, but the soul ripens. What once felt fragmented can be gathered. What once was avoided can be reconciled. If these ideas resonate with you, tell us in the comments what blessing you are starting to see in this stage of your life. Subscribe to Sophion if you wish to keep walking with us through these questions, and when you're ready, explore the other videos here. Each one is a step deeper into the same search. And always remember, when youth fades, when ambition dies, and when time grows short, what remains is not weakness, but the blessing of becoming whole.